now. And for those of you who've shared your details, then I will send you the slide deck, I will send you the recording and a few other materials as well that hopefully will be useful to you and remind you about what we're going to be talking about today and give you some extra information as well. As Nama said, my name's Chris Houghton. I'm Head of Digital Scholarship at Gale. I'm sorry that I can't be with you there in what I imagine is lovely sunny Tel Aviv. It is sunny here in the UK, but I would imagine a lot colder. So I'm kind of shivering here in my study. I'm Head of Digital Scholarship for Gale. And many of you I recognize and I've spoken to before, so welcome. It's lovely to see you again. And today, the session that we put together is Digital Humanities for Non-Experts, an introduction to Gale Digital Scholar Lab. And why am I talking about this? Well, my job really is to work with the digital humanities community and the wider academic community globally to help them use the product that I'm going to be talking about today, the platform, Gale Digital Scholar Lab, but most importantly, to understand how you're working at the moment, what you're doing, how you're teaching, how you want to teach, especially, and take all that information and bring it back into Gale and bring it back into the lab itself so that we can develop a platform, an experience that is as useful to everybody as we possibly can. So that is the sort of the major part of my work. Just a little bit of housekeeping today. Today's session is going to be about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit less now. And I want to try and give as much time for questions and things like that at the end as possible. So I'm going to zip through some things. There isn't nearly enough time to take you through absolutely everything in the lab or within digital humanities. So there are going to be some things that just due to time constraints, I'm going to kind of skip over a little bit quicker than necessarily I'd like to. As I said, I am going to try and send you some sort of follow-up material so that I can expand on some of those things and give you some background reading if you're interested. So you'll have a bit of that in there. In terms of asking questions, because there's quite a big group, I'm going to ask if we can save questions to the end. That would be fantastic. But of course, do please pop questions into the chat. And I can see one there from Ruben. Oh, am I not recording? Let me just check. Am I recording? I think I am at the moment. Thank you, Ruben. It's always good to make sure that I am. But the recording is happening, so I'm glad about that. But yeah, do pop your questions into the chat as we go. I'll try and answer them as we go, or otherwise I might save them towards the end so that we can answer them all in one go. And at the end, I'll invite you to sort of unmute and ask questions, and I'll try and answer them to the best of my abilities. So with all of that said, let me just check quickly. I want to understand you and your DH knowledge. I know that with the distribution list and the invite list today, we've got a lot of faculty, academics, postgraduate researchers, but I'm interested in your DH knowledge. So if you can please go to this website, www.menti.com, and use the code 33388197. I have just put that into the chat, and I'm just going to skip over my screen for a second to here, where you can see that at the top. So if you just go to that website there, menti.com, and just pop in that code, you should get one question. Somebody's already got there to tell me your existing level of knowledge of digital humanities. It's completely anonymous, so don't be embarrassed. This is not to shame anyone or anything like that. I'm just interested in understanding you, what you know at the moment, and sort of where to start, where to pitch the presentation, and to make sure that I don't go too in depth, but also don't leave people behind. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Thank you to everybody who's doing that so far. I like these things. You can kind of see them coming through in real time. So those of you who've just joined, maybe the website you're going to, if you can, is www.menti.com, and then the code is there at the top of the screen. We've got quite a lot of people with sort of little knowledge, a few no knowledge. That's absolutely fine, no problem at all. I don't assume any existing knowledge here. It's just really great to understand understand what you know already. So I'll give you maybe 20 more seconds, anybody who's not jumped on, just to pop in your knowledge.
Excuse me, can you write the link on the chat?
Of course I can. Let me do it here. Thank you. There it is there. And if you need the that, it's that. Actually, let's see if I can make it a link rather than it just being this sort of, there you go, static thing. So there's a link there for you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Good. Okay. 10 more seconds. It's absolutely not compulsory for you guys to do this. Oh, we've got another expert in the room. Fantastic. I shall mind what I said. Mind what I say. Good. Okay. Now this is slowing down. I will say thank you. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Okay. So generally speaking, today we're looking at a sort of a beginners to intermediate level of knowledge of digital humanities, which is absolutely fine and is great. And thank you very much for popping in your information there, as it really helps just to understand where you are. So let us begin. And these are just a few of the things that we're going to be talking about today. Ideally, what I'd like to do is dive straight into the lab. So that's what we're going to do. I've got a few slides just to sort of frame a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about. But really, what I want to get into is showing you the workflow of the lab, how you can create a project within the tool, and showing you the entire workflow, beginning to end, from developing beginning to develop a research question, all the way into how do I turn that into sort of some actionable outputs. We're going to be looking at some of the tools in depth, or trying to look at as many of the tools in depth as we can. We won't be able to look at all of them in the depth that maybe we can, but really I want you to get a sense of what they are and why you would use them. In what circumstances would you use these tools? Because I think it's important to say that there is a real mix of tools within the lab. We've tried to develop and include tools that are as varied as possible and as useful for as many people as possible. So it doesn't matter whether you're from literature or linguistics, or maybe you're from history or sociology or psychology, there will be tools in there for you. And it entirely depends on the project you're creating. And then finally, I want to talk to you about how you can upload your own content. Maybe that's special collections within the library. I know that the library has incredible special collections, and being able to mine them, text mine them within tools like the Digital Scholar Lab is a way of really getting the maximum value out of these things. But thinking about how you can take these this local content wherever it's from. It could be, as I said, from the library, it could be from Twitter, it could be something you've written, and upload it and use it within the research pipeline of the lab. So this is today, and this is what we're going to be going through. So I'm going to start very briefly with the idea of what traditional digital scholarship is. And this is, I should make it very clear that digital humanities is a really vast area of study. I think that's maybe the best way to put it. It's not really a subject or anything like that. I think it's broader than that. And you can get involved in digital humanities from any number of angles. So you might be interested in working with text data. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the area of digital humanities specifically concerned with text and data mining. Okay, so it might be abbreviated to TDM, or text and data mining, and this is sort of the basics of what that is. But TDM is a part of digital humanities. It might be that you're interested in pictures or audio. You might be interested in virtual reality or augmented reality. I'm not here to talk to you about any of that. I'd love it if we got into it, but we're focusing on what we're good at, and that's text. Okay. What we're good at begins with this first image, this primary source here on the left-hand side. This is a radio talk to do with family planning, and this is from the early 20th century. So this is what Gale does, provides you with facsimile primary source material. So from libraries and archives around the world, we'll go in and we'll take incredibly high quality pictures and we'll make them available to you through databases. You know, at Tel Aviv, you're incredibly lucky in that the library has worked a lot and spent a lot of money to build up this collection of materials for you. And they will look more or less something like this first image here, a facsimile of a physical document. Now, that's not enough. So us just making that facsimile available to you as a PDF or something like that isn't enough, because that's not terrifically useful. What you want is the ability to search through those documents anywhere in the documents for any word or phrase, depending on what you're interested in. So, you know, you might be interested in looking at the political history of Tel Aviv, for example, in which case you might want to search for the words politics or political and Tel Aviv. Now, what we give you is the ability to search for those words or those phrases anywhere in the document. So it doesn't matter where it appears. It could be in a 500-page book, and your words could appear on page 499, in which case we'll take you to page 499 and we'll show you your words highlighted with a little green box over it. Now, the reason I talk about that is the way that works is through a process called OCR. OCR is this second image here. OCR stands for optical character recognition, and is the algorithmic software process by which we turn an original facsimile image of a document into this second image, something that is machine readable. Okay, so machine readable text, and you can see it here. So what you've got here is a document, a simple XML file that is readable. You could access it on your Notepad app within your computer or something like that. So the simplest word processing tool, just text, no images, and that's what makes a digital archive, so any digital archive that you have from anywhere, full text searchable, is behind the scenes sitting a document like this, machine readable OCR. Now, if you go into any of our digital archives, you can download the image. So you can download this first image. If you click download, you'll get an option that says PDF, and then you can download the image. You can also, in most of our digital archives, download the underlying OCR. So you can download the second image as well. Now, this is incredibly useful, because once you download this and have it on your desktop, it's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so you could combine it with other text and maybe analyze it in Excel or something. Or you can run your own tools against it. Or you can upload it into other software. Now, this is what I've done here. I've taken this text and I've uploaded it into a piece of software called Voyant. Voyant is Voyant is V-O-Y-A-N-T, and is an open, freely available piece of software that, if you plug in your data, allows you to do things like what I've done here on the right. So creating a statistical output, in this case, the most commonly occurring words within my text. And then from that, I can visualize it. So I can create a word cloud from all of that. So this allows me to tell you that this original document is about birth control and children's health and mothers and families. Okay, so it's a really useful way. And this is the kind of thing that digital scholarship does for you. It's a really useful way of visualizing the original document so that you could understand it and I can show it to you without you ever having to read the document. necessarily. So it can act as a complement to your close reading. It should never be considered a replacement for close reading, no, but a complement, absolutely. And of course, this gets even more powerful when you start combining together documents, when you start looking at 10 documents or 20, maybe all of the work of a particular author or from a particular subject or time period or whatever. Being able to visualize it in this way, nice and easily, allows you to look at it in a completely new way. And this is, broadly speaking, traditional digital scholarship, the way that scholars have been doing digital scholarship for the last kind of 60 or 70 years. Now, it comes with, there are lots of challenges within this. And one of the challenges is creating content sets. So if you're downloading individual documents one by one, that's fine if you're talking about 5 documents or 10 or 20 even. But more than that, it starts getting quite challenging and time consuming. So if you're talking about 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, that's too much, that's too difficult. So this is where we came in. So in 2014, we developed, we started sending out the underlying OCR for our archive. So if you had bought, let's say, the Times Digital Archive is one of our most famous archives, then you could purchase the underlying OCR. So essentially, we would ship you all of the text documents, all of the underlying OCR for the Times from 1785, which is when it started, all the way up to 2019. And you would have the ability to mine that. And what I'm going to be showing you today is kind of the outcome of what we learned from talking to scholars who were using that data. So keeping in touch with the scholars and understanding how they were using all of that data. But with all of that said, I want to just introduce the product that we're going to be talking about, the software that we're going to be talking about, and it's this. This is the Gale Digital Scholar Lab. So very briefly, what it is, it's an online cloud-hosted text and data mining research environment. And it's kind of designed to overcome some of the core challenges that scholars faced when using the underlying text data that we sent out. So, but what it is essentially a place where you can access a broad range of texts from your Gale primary source collections, okay? So the reason I say that is, the reason I say your is because we're not showing you things to which you don't have access. What you can see, if you've purchased something from us, if you bought it, then you can mine it, okay? And you're going to find it within the Digital Scholar Lab. But crucially, and this is for the first time ever, you've got those texts now combined together with powerful text mining tools. And this is what we're going to be looking at in a second, designed to work on it. So it's kind of all integrated together and it's all designed to work together. Now, what that means is that you or anyone in Tel Aviv, so any of your students or anyone that you work with, has the ability to create custom content sets across your Gale primary source collections. So what I mean by that is you can combine together 17th century journals, 18th century newspapers, 20th century books, and, oh, I've missed one out, haven't I? 19th century playbills, say. You can combine all of that together and you can mine it in about 5 minutes. I don't know why you ever would, but you could if you wanted to. And you can do things like organize and manage your research, and we'll be seeing all of this in action in just a second. There's an awful lot of integrated help and instructional material. Now, I want to focus on this at the start of what I'm going to be showing you because, as I said, I don't have time to take you through everything, but what I want to leave you with is where you can go to get help and advice and support once I'm no longer in the picture. So there's a lot of help within the lab, and I want to make sure that you've got a chance to have a look at it. At every stage, what we've tried to do is be as open as we can so that you can export OCR, statistical data, and visualizations in any format, or in standard formats, I should say, not in any format, in standard formats, and basically just take them out of the lab and use them in your own work. Okay, so whether that's exporting the OCR for a content set so that you can run your own algorithms across it, exporting statistical data and combining it with other data so that you can analyze that in more detail, or just exporting visualizations to go into work, then absolutely you can do all of that. And we've tried to be as open as we can. There's also the ability to upload your own text files. I'm going to show you that in action, and I'm going to show you some examples of that working so that you've got a sense of how it can work. Now, at this stage, I want to be clear, because this is a question I always get when I'm working at Tel Aviv, is unfortunately, this doesn't work with Hebrew text at the moment. We're trying and working to, we're looking for partners essentially to help us with developing things, because the problem is not with uploading text into the lab. Okay, in essence, you could probably upload Hebrew text into the lab. The problem comes in using the tools on the text that you've uploaded, because tools have to be trained. Okay, so as you're going to see, the tools that we have, they have to be trained. All the tools are trained on what's in the Gale archives at the moment. The majority of that is English, although there is about 10% of the Gale archives that is non-English as well. The problem that we have at the moment, and the reason that we're looking to work with academics to kind of to fix it, is that in essence, it takes a long time to train, a lot of money to train the tools and get them to work on different languages, because you're not just training them on kind of 21st century Hebrew, but you might be training them on, 19th century, 18th century. As we know, language changes over time, the way that words change, the meaning of words change, and the way that words are written change over time. So there's a lot of work. It can take, months and months to train even single tools to work. So we're sort of still working on it. It's very much an ambition of ours to make the lab work for non-English text mining. Okay, but we're not there yet. Okay, so it's set up for English language. It will work with, in certain circumstances, in kind of other, can I say non-Latin, other Latin-based scripts, so French, German, Dutch, that sort of thing. So there might be some relevance within there for you. There is some content in there. You can upload some of that into the lab and use some of the tools, especially quantitative tools. But qualitative tools, things that maybe need a lexicon that's sitting behind them, it doesn't work in that at the moment. So unfortunately, you can't upload Hebrew text into the lab and mine it. And that's because of the tools themselves, not just because of the kind of uploading. Now, there may have been a question on that. Oh, no, there isn't, but there is, I think, somebody there. Is it possible to mine text in different writing methods? I think I might have answered that one there, cuneiform writing. Not within the lab, and I'm just answering a question there. Is it possible to mine text written in different writing methods, cuneiform writing, for instance? Not at the moment. Partly, so the question, I think, is something to do with, where there's texts that aren't the sort of, say, the Western, written left to right. They might be written bottom to top or right to left or something like that. So I'm thinking Arabic, Hebrew, Mandarin, that sort of thing. One of the issues, I mean, there are issues in the way that the text is written, and actually within the DH community more broadly, there's a lot of work going on at the moment to create OCR methods to work on these kind of cuneiform texts. So text that might be written right to left, for example, or bottom to top. One of the other issues of them is figuring out how to differentiate words and indeed letters from within that, because that's something that the OCR has to do. And of course, if you've got an OCR engine that is set up to work on say English, then that's not going to work on, let's say, Arabic. So it's about developing the OCR engines, and that work is happening at the moment, and I'm really pleased to say it's happening a lot. And then training the mining tools to work on that. That once you've got the OCR and got that in a place where you can mine it. But as I said, not at the moment within the lab, but it's something that we're developing. And if anybody in the call at the moment is really working on this, I'd be delighted to have a conversation with you after this, so that, as I said, we're looking for partners to be able to sort of generate these kind of functionalities. Okay, What do I want to talk about next? So very quickly, this is a busy slide, but this is the lab workflow. Okay, so this is really what I'm going to be talking about today. And the light blue bit in the middle is the workflow, essentially: build, clean, analyze. And you're going to see that as we go into the lab. If we look underneath that, in the sort of darker blue bits, you've got what you might be doing in each of the steps or stages of the workflow and where you might be doing it. So if you want to refine your attributes under build, you'd go to advanced search. If you want to evaluate your results, you'd go to the results page, etc. There's a few things I want to pull out of this document and make clear to you to begin with. The first is, if we look at the very bottom, you've got the ability to download at every stage. So you can download after each part of the workflow, whether you're building, cleaning, or analyzing. So we're trying to make it so that you can strip out the data at any stage and do what you want with it. The second thing to look at is all of the orange arrows. So to denote the workflow, you can see that they're all double-ended. Okay, so they've all got arrows at either end. This, well, hopefully indicates, essentially this workflow looks, I think, like a linear workflow: build to clean, that to analyze, 1 to 2 to 3. Okay, but I don't want you to think about it like that. I want you to think about it as an iterative workflow, as a way of experimenting. Okay, so you can go backwards as well as forwards. You can start in the middle if you want to and go backwards. So think of this as a way of doing experiments where you maybe start at the beginning and you run through the process and you see what you come out with. And if that's maybe not exactly what you wanted, or it's not quite right, you go back again, you maybe change one of the variables, and then you run it again. So just like the science experiments that we did in school, essentially just the ability to kind of run it again and again. And one of the benefits of the lab is what we're trying to do is just shrink all the time that you take to do each of these steps, so that you can really shrink it down. And instead of taking maybe 20 minutes to configure cleaning attributes, it's maybe taking you 30 seconds or 1 minute, so that you can do these experiments quicker, maybe do them within a classroom setting, and run the project end to end in a much quicker way. But there's one final bit that I want to highlight, and that's this at the beginning and at the end: ideation and interpretation. When we developed the lab, essentially we just developed the bit in the middle. So build, clean, analyze. And very quickly it became clear that what we needed to do was to scaffold to put a scaffolding around that workflow. Ideation is essentially where you construct your research question or discover your phenomena. Interpretation reflects back on it, is where you reflect on your research questions or develop your inferences. But they're the crucial parts of any project. So if you can remember nothing else, remember that the most important part of working within the lab is the bit at the beginning, is starting with your research question. Because everything flows off your research question: how you build your content set, what documents you bring into it, how you clean it, what tools you analyze it with. It all starts with the research question that you begin with. Okay, so if you can start with that, then you'll be in a good place. Okay, now, before I jump in, oh, there's another question there. Do you have a library or database of cleaned text? Great question, Vered. Not really is the answer to that one. So essentially, what you have from Gale is, well, tens of millions of pages of primary documents. Mostly those documents aren't really cleaned. Okay, we don't do much to clean them, mainly because academics and the academic community over 20 years have told us not to do that. Because in some cases, when it comes to cleaning these documents, what the document says is not particularly clear and is open to interpretation. Now, with the best will in the world, we're not the subject experts. You are the subject experts. Academics are the subject experts, which is why the academic community said, you don't clean this, we'll clean this. Okay, so what we try and do is give you the material as it was when it was digitized. We do a tiny bit of cleaning, having said that, but that's only to do things like, I don't know if you're familiar with kind of Old English, but in kind of 18th century English, the letter S was often written as a letter F. So we kind of correct for that, so that, you know, so you can search for things with an S in it and it will find you things with an F in it. But that's really about it. Derek, I hope that answers your question. But thank you for it. Okay, so before I jump in, these are the points that I'm going to try and hit. This is more as a reminder to me as anybody else. So first of all, importance of the research question. I think I've talked about that. Why the H in DH is just as important as the D. I think often when people talk about digital humanities, they get kind of fixated or hung up on the digital part. But I want to talk to you about why the humanities part is just as important. So the humanities skills that obviously you will have and that you're teaching your students of critical thinking, of interpretation, are just as important. And they're as important with the text themselves as they are with the underlying OCR and with the software that is being used. So there's an awful lot where you really need to focus on sort of critical evaluation. And I'll be talking about how you can do that within the lab as well. I'll talk a little bit about how the lab fits into the technology ecosystem more broadly. The lab is really good and it's really broad, but it doesn't do everything. Okay, we would never say it does. And there's plenty that you can do within digital humanities outside of using the lab. Obviously, you might want to take the data out of the lab and put them into other tools. So if you're thinking about teaching with the lab or incorporate it into a course like universities around the world are doing at the moment, I would always suggest the lab is great and can teach a lot of the basics and can really help people get into the advanced levels of text and data mining, but it's not going to do everything for you. And it's important to understand how it fits together with other tools as well. I'll talk a little bit about some data management best practice, just some little hints and things that can help you with your research and really help you save some time. I think I've talked about this, but the value of experimentation, of iteration, and sometimes, frankly, of play. You know, the ability of the great thing about tools like this is they allow you to play with the data that you have and really be able to explore it in a new way. And there's some real value in that. And then finally, and this leads on, how sometimes the process is the outcome. Sometimes it's not as simple as, and I'd be lying to you if I said it was as simple as, you have a research question, you plug it in at the start of the workflow, and out comes your answer. Would that it was that simple, but it very rarely is. Sometimes you won't be able to answer the question, based on the question or whatever with the available data and the available tools. But often the process of mining it within a tool like the lab teaches you things about the data and about the subject that can lead you off in completely new ways and really opens your eyes to other parts of the subject. So sometimes just working with these things and mining the data is enough. So we'll talk about that. Now, if you wanted a link to sort of follow along a little bit, then the lab at Tel Aviv is here. I think I'm right in saying that in the chat, somebody has put the link in there. So more, thank you very much. I saw that within there. But I've made that a little tiny URL as well there, tinyurl.com/Tel Aviv lab. You don't have to follow along at all. I might be zipping through quite quickly, so don't feel that you have to. And as I said, I'll be sending you the recording, so you'll be able to sort of follow things that I did as we go through. But I thought I'd pop that in there for you too. Okay, off we move to the lab itself. So let me skip over to, this is how I get to the lab. I won't be going into your instance of the lab. So just so as you're aware, if I'm using content that you don't have, then I've got access to absolutely everything within the lab. So what you're doing might look slightly different because you're working with what you have through the Tel Aviv library, which is masses of content, but not quite everything that we do have. So I get to it with a link that looks a bit like this, and then I get into the lab itself. This is what the lab looks like. It's just had a facelift, just had an overhaul back in December, so it looks and works slightly different. But for those of you in the library and concerned with training and teaching your databases, this now looks very similar and works very similarly to the majority of your other databases. So hopefully that makes training on them for your kind of student population a lot easier, fingers crossed. And you get to it in the same way as anything else. You click a link and it takes you into the lab. There is one other step that you have to do, and that is to log in or to create an account. Now, there are a few ways of doing this. I've been advised that there are a few issues with using Microsoft and with the Tel Aviv the Tel Aviv infrastructure, like it blocks it or something like that. The advice to all of you is to use a sort of personal Google account. You can set one up specifically just a sort of dummy one to access this. But in essence, all this does, and you can see me logging into my one here, is it signs me in as a named user. So you sign in as a named user within the lab, and that allows you to save all of your research. So all of your research is housed within here. It's accessible only to you. We don't look at it. Nobody else can see it. It's all just there for you. And you can access it again and again from wherever you log in. Okay, so you can log in from home or on holiday or on your phone. It's all totally fine. And this is the lab. This is what it is. And you can see up at the top right, we've got our workflow: build, clean, analyze, and a bit that says my content sets. We'll come to all of that in a second. But the workflow is here on the front page. So we've got build, there's clean, and then there's analyze. Now, if I scroll down a bit, you can see there's a video here and some help and advice on how to find out what's in the lab. That's all contained and all comes from this, the Learning Center over here on the left. So if I click into that, and if anyone's following me, you can click in here. This is the Learning Center. This is what it is. The Learning Center is a bit more than your kind of average help text. For two reasons. One, it's been designed by kind of an instructional designer. So we hired an instructional designer to develop this on the latest pedagogical principles. So in essence, you can use this within teaching. And there are plenty of courses around the world at the moment that are using this within teaching because the material has been kind of set up to work in a 21st century teaching context. Okay. But the second and most important thing is that all the materials that are in it are developed by DH experts. So we employ a couple of DH specialists. So specialists like my colleague, Dr. Sarah Ketchley. She works at the University of Washington. She teaches digital humanities. She's an Egyptologist by trade, but she teaches digital humanities across the University of Washington. And her voice is the voice that you hear when you click on all of these videos. So you can see that, for example, you've got the workflow laid out here: build, clean, analyze. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you advice as well as telling you what the tools are. So how you select the right tool, how you get set up and run the tools, and even within the tools themselves. So this is a tool called topic modeling. Topic modeling is a really well-known and popular technique within digital humanities that allows you to make sense of a large set of unstructured data. We're going to be looking at it in a second. Essentially, what it does and how it works is it runs an algorithm many times across your data, looking for words that commonly appear together. Okay, so when it finds those words, it groups them together into thematic topics. So it's a great way of extracting themes and topics from a large set of data. And all of what I've just said is basically here. So it tells you what topic modeling is and how it works. It also, and this is for the experts amongst you, gives you a link to the underlying tool. All of the tools in the lab are based on or built on open source architecture or an open source tool. So tools like this one. This is Mallet. Mallet is a really well-known a topic modeling tool within digital humanities. It was created back in 2007 at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And the reason that we use this is it works. It's been around for a long time. It's been critiqued, it's been cited, it's been developed, it's been iterated to the extent that it just works and people trust it. So rather than creating our own tool, we just decided to take and use Mallet. If you're interested in looking at the underlying data or getting people to critically analyze the algorithm, this is where you would go. Okay, so you've got the access to the API, and you can really look at this in much more detail. So if you've got people who are really real experts in this, who run their own code, they create their own algorithms, then something like this would be really useful. For everything else, everyone else, it's just useful to understand where the tool you're using comes from. And as I said, this one is Mallet. But as well as all of that, as well as telling you what the tool is and how it works, we also try and tell you why you should use it. And that's this bit here. So give you the application of why you should use this tool. So if you are new to this, then you've got all of that stuff there. Now, because of the audience that we have here, there's a couple of other bits that I think will be useful to you. For example, curriculum materials here. These are things like syllabi, lesson plans, learning objectives, project outlines that you can take away and use. They're completely free for you to use. They're all based on existing courses, like my colleague Sarah Ketchley's courses at University of Washington. So whether you're teaching digital humanities or you're exploring an academic subject, but you want to include digital humanities in it, then you've got examples of curricula that you can use as a starting point if you want to. There's also another thing that is really, really useful, especially within teaching, or if you're trying to learn how the lab works itself, and that is these sample projects. Sample projects are academically written projects, end-to-end projects. We've commissioned these. So in essence, what this will do is it will take you through a full project. So from beginning, whether you've got the research question, to building your content set, to cleaning it, to analyzing it, and then finally to interpreting your analysis, including other questions you might want to go to. So you can follow that all the way through and see how a project is built in the lab. But crucially, and this is great, you have the ability, everyone in the institution has the ability to download and get a copy of this project. So you can download the underlying data. If Tel Aviv don't have access to it, we'll give it to you for free. So we're giving you some free data there. We're giving you the cleaning configuration, and we're giving you the tool configurations. And this means that you can rerun the project in its entirety, following it along with this commentary, but rerunning it within the lab. And of course, once you can run it, you can deconstruct it. So you can take content out, you can add content, you can change a cleaning configuration, or you can add new tools or change the cleaning configurations of the tools. So there's a lot that you can do, and these things are great for just a step-by-step guide. And of course, you can use this within a classroom for everybody, following along an example and then sort of discussing how you might change it. So do use these if you want to sort of teach within the lab. Okay, but that's enough of sort of where you go to get access, where you go to get help. And the Learning Center is absolutely, I would advise you, once we're done here, use the Learning Center to get as much help and support as there is. It's the very best place that I can send you. Let's start using the lab now, and we're going to use the build, clean, analyze function here. We'll start with build, because this is where you start building up your content set. You've got a few options here. You've got search on the left. That searches through your Gale data. Okay, and we're going to do that in just a second. But on the right, you've got your upload function. So where you would go to upload your own content. And this can come from anywhere, whether that's, as I said, special collections within the library. It could be a download from Twitter. It could be, your own content. Who knows? As long as you've got the rights to mine it and it's in the right format, you can mine it. Okay, we don't. We've got no mechanism for checking to see whether you've got the rights to mine. The rights to mine it are all on you. That's for you to determine. Okay, but it has to be in a certain format, and that's this format here, a .txt file. .txt files are essentially a simple text file. And the reason that we do that is for two reasons. One is that it guarantees that there's no pictures in there. The tools that we have are all set up for text mining. It means that they don't work very well with the pictures. So if you upload a PDF or something like that that's got pictures in it, then the tools will struggle with it. Okay, so a text file, a .txt file, guarantees there's going to be no pictures in there. in time, we'll make it available for more types of files, but we're kind of trying to walk before we can run, trying to make sure that we get it right for text first, and then we can upload more. We can allow the upload of more types of files. The other reason is they're really small. They're small files, and it means you can upload as much as you like. So it's unlimited, the amount you can upload. You can upload in 10 megabyte chunks, so it has to be 10 megabytes at a time, but you can do as much as you want. Upload as much as you want, it's totally fine. Once it's in the lab, it's secure. Nobody else can see it. We can't see what you upload. We only make sure that you're not uploading viruses and things like that. That's the only checking that we do. Otherwise, only you can see it. It's completely secure and kept on an Amazon Web server. So there we go. And the ability and the way that you do it is essentially you just browse to the bit of your desktop that has the particular poems or documents. In this case, I've got some poems here, 2 poems, one by Coleridge and one by Keats. This is an example that I'm going to be showing you a bit later from a class that I taught on Gothic poetry. So it was a regular English literature class, but what they wanted to do was include a week where they talked about digital humanities and the ability of the lab to give new ways to look at in this case, their set texts. So these were 2 of their set texts. And I found those on the open web, copied them, and by turning them into a text file, I was able to upload them there into the lab. And there they are, successfully uploaded. Once you've uploaded the data, you do need to give it metadata. Well, you don't have to, but my strong advice is that you do. Okay, metadata basically runs everything within the lab, and you can upload quickly so that you're uploading the same metadata for all of your files, or if you do it in bulk, you download a form, you add metadata for each of the files that you're uploading, and then you save it and re-upload it again. That's probably more useful as it allows you to be specific. But the key thing with metadata is once you've uploaded it, if you go to manage my documents, which is here, then what metadata gives you is the ability to, well, let's do this. There we go there, to filter by, in this case, author, and to be able to find the documents that I'm looking for here. Here are ones for which I've added metadata. I don't want those ones, so I can just delete them. That's fine. Get rid of those. But if I wanted to add one or other of these other poems into a content set, let's do that again. So there's my Keats now. I can add that to a content set, any of the content sets, it doesn't matter, that I've already got, or I could create a new one there. So metadata helps me to find my documents. It also helps the tools to run on them, because some of the tools look at metadata. So for example, things like date. If I'm plotting, let's say, sentiment over time, that over time bit comes from the date. So I'd want to have the date that the particular thing was published, and I can add that. I've seen a couple of questions pop up, so I'll just answer those. What about copyright issues when sharing the content? Sharing full text extracted from documents, for example. Hage, great question. As I said, essentially the onus for determining whether you have the right to mine the data lies on the researcher. Okay, so that's all on the researcher. We can't put or we haven't put, it would be really, really complicated for us to put a kind of mechanism in place. We do make it clear that you have to have the right to mine this kind of stuff. So it all lies on the researcher to figure out whether you're allowed to do that under copyright. Usually it's not too difficult to find out, but that's something that falls on the researcher. Can you upload TXT files with any type of encoding? You should be able to. Yeah, that should be something that you should be able to do. Just text files generally, because they're so simple, the encoding doesn't make too much of a difference. No problem, Hage, thank you. Can you add custom metadata information to my content set? Only the metadata, so great question again. Can you add custom metadata? You can only add the metadata that the metadata points, or the metadata areas, I suppose, that we have within here. And you can kind of see most of them here: published, author, publisher, publication title. If, for example, you had other metadata like I don't know, size of the document or something like that, you wouldn't be able to add that one. At the moment, no, that wouldn't be in there. You'd have to have that probably somewhere else. And the reason that you wouldn't be able to have that is it would be useless for you within the lab's context. So it wouldn't make any difference to you. But super question. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's adding my own data, and you're going to see what I've just done. You'll see that in action in just a second. We're going to go back to build though, because I want to show you how you build within your Gale data. Obviously, one of the real benefits of the lab is it works on that huge amount of data that the library has been great at creating over the course of actually many years, and has spent loads of money and loads of time and effort in kind of creating this and curating this massive database for you. So let's show you how you use it. You can do a broad search. I wouldn't recommend it simply because you've got an advanced search, and to my mind, advanced search is much more useful because it gives you more options, and options are always good. So here you can see lots of options for kind of refining your search. Now, I want to show you a search that is an actual piece of PhD research that happened back in 2012 that we supported from a person called Kat Gupta. Kat was really interested in looking for portrayals of women's suffrage within editorials within the Times newspaper between 1907 and 1914. Why editorials? The reason is that editorials, broadly speaking, are a great place to go for kind of commentary, for opinion. If you're interested in finding out what people thought at a particular time, you can do much worse than looking in the editorials of newspapers, because you know that's somebody's opinion, and it's obviously writing to, in a lot of cases, the newspaper's readership. So editorials, great place for opinion. So that's what she was trying. That's what they were trying to do. It took Kat about 6 months to do that research, because it's in essence when they found us and when we managed to send them the data, it took about 4 months after we'd done all of that, which that period of sending the data took about 2 months. It then took about 4 months to go into each issue of the Times newspaper, so 5 issues a week, 52 weeks a year for 7 years, to find where the editorial bit was, to copy that and to paste it into a database. Okay, now that's not out of the ordinary. I see researchers doing that today, like all the time, people taking months, if not years, to bring a content set together. And if the lab does nothing else for you, it's going to give you the mechanism to really reduce that time, to shrink that time down, and to give you more time to do other things. Okay, so let me show you how I can replicate Kat's research in about a minute now. So I'm going to start off by searching for my word suffrage. But in this case, what I don't want to do is just look for the word suffrage. I want to look for any alternative ending, like you can see some here: suffragette, suffragism, suffragist, etc. If I have an asterisk at the end of my word, it finds me any alternative ending. Now, these wildcards and things are quite common. If you're wondering what Gale's wildcards are, we've put a little note for you here. So you can see asterisk finds you any alternative ending. Here for Carib, it will find you Caribs or Caribbean or Caribou, and that sort of thing. At the moment, it's searching in my keyword, which contains terms in key fields, but does not search in the entire document. That's no good for me. That's too limiting. So instead, I'm going to go for the entire document, which finds these words, terms, in the full text. That's much better. I'm then going to, I could narrow my search to a particular database. So I can narrow it to newspapers or narrow it down to the Times, which is down here at the bottom. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go much broader than Kat did and search through all the newspapers to which I have access. I'm also going to go broader on the date. Kat wanted 7 years. I'm going to go for 50 years. So I'm going to go from 1870 all the way through to 1920. And you'll see that there. Then I've got a few more options to limit by certain things. So limit by city of publication, by content type, by language, by illustrated work, by OCR confidence range. And I'll talk about OCR confidence in a second. But the one I want is document type, as that allows me, there's about 100 different document types. I want to look for editorials, There we are, there's editorials. And if I click search, it'll take a second. And what I should come up with is about 14,800 results. There we are there at the top. And this is what took Kat Gupta 6 months to do back in 2012, and is taking researchers loads of time today by doing this in a kind of longhand way. Now, I'm only being slightly hyperbolic here because as a researcher, you still have a step to do here, because 14,000 results is a lot, okay? And maybe far too many. So you kind of want to explore through this and really bring your critical faculties to bear. So bring the humanities part of digital humanities to bear here. But there's a lot that you've got here to kind of help you with that process. So for example, this is one of my favorite things, the ability to limit by archives. So this here is just essentially a list of what archives your results have come from. Because I'm searching for editorials, unsurprisingly, it's newspapers here at the top. But if I scroll down a bit, there's a few things that I wasn't expecting. So the Women's Studies Archive, I might not have thought to look in there. This one, I definitely wouldn't have decided to look in slavery and anti-slavery. I mean, why stuff in there? But there's 51 documents, and it might be that those things are very interesting, understudied, very, very useful. So this is, in essence, in my mind, your discovery engine. This is the ability to find things in places you might never have thought to look for them. And Tel Aviv has such a broad range of archives from Gale. I know, for example, they've got, I think I'm right in saying, legal archives. You might find things in places you would never have thought to look in if you were just looking at the title of the archive. So go as broad as you can and look within this archive section. It'll enable you to discover. There's another thing, though, that I like to use to discover, especially within newspapers, and that's publication title. Publication title, because with newspapers, we've got a lot of groups of newspapers, lots of collections of newspapers. This instantly gives me 3 or 4 ways in which I could take my research. So, for example, I could take newspapers aimed at women, and I could compare them to, let's say, more mainstream or national or regional newspapers, like this one here. I could take American newspapers and compare them to British newspapers. I could take national daily newspapers and compare them to regional newspapers. Or, and this is the one that I'm going to do, I could take Scottish newspapers and compare them to English or UK newspapers. So if I want the Aberdeen Journal, I'll select that one there, click apply, and it's going to limit me all the way down to 481 results, which is a much more manageable way of looking at them. I see a question's popped up, so I'm just going to address that. Does the database include academic papers? Yale? No, it doesn't. Gale doesn't have academic papers within them, like journals or anything like that. Not within here. Obviously, you've got a lot of different databases. They're mostly, if I'm remembering correctly, historic primary sources. So whether that's newspapers, there are some journals, but historic journals, monographs, manuscripts, that sort of thing. So well worth having a conversation with your library. And I'm sure somebody from the library is typing furiously in the chat now to tell you some of the newspapers to which you have access. But have a conversation with your library. The library is absolutely fantastic and can tell you exactly what the newspapers are, the archives are to which you have access. So that would definitely be my advice to you. But thank you, brilliant question. Okay, so you still need to do another step, and that is to kind of look at these results and figure out whether you want to include them in your research or not. Okay, and we've tried to give you some advice and some help with that. And the help is around metadata. We've talked about metadata already. Metadata, for those of you who don't know, is just data about data. Okay, so what we have here is the data to describe what this particular document is. For example, this is from the Aberdeen Journal. It was from 1912 and comes from the collection British Library Newspapers, where the source, unsurprisingly, is the British Library. Now, this is good for you as a researcher because instantly this is your kind of in or out. You know, am I including this or am I excluding this? It might be that you don't care about 1912. In fact, you want to exclude it. So you exclude these first three, and then suddenly you get to 1906 and you think, right, okay, I'm going to include that one in there. That's the first thing. The second piece of metadata, or the second section where you can get metadata, is over here. OCR confidence is a piece of metadata that comes out of the OCR process. It's not the same as OCR accuracy. Okay, but it is our best indicator of what OCR accuracy is. Just in case you want to know, this tells you a bit more and you can learn more about how we create our text, how we create OCR. I don't have the time to tell you about all of that here. I will put a link when I send it through to you in the email that I send afterwards, which gives you a video talking about how we create OCR and gives you some more background about what it is and why you need to think critically about it, why it's not a perfect thing, especially when we're talking about historical primary sources. But OCR confidence is the best indicator we can give you of OCR accuracy. It's not perfect. You can get documents with low confidence and high accuracy, and you can get ones with high confidence and low accuracy, but most of the time, it's pretty well correlated. In essence, OCR confidence is how well the OCR engine thinks that it's done, how well it thinks it's done in creating the OCR, okay? And for you, the researcher, all this is kind of a guide to see, is the OCR trustworthy, or might there be something wrong? And essentially all I'm doing is I'm kind of looking down all of these, and they're all in the same range. They're all kind of 89s, high 80s, low 90s. There's a 78, but that looks fine. 87s, keep going, you know, loads of sort of low 90s, high 80s, and everything seems fine at the moment until I get to this bit. And there I found a 75. And this prompts me to look a bit lower. And I look at the first line of the OCR. And instantly I can see that there's something wrong with this. Okay, so we get to do my favorite thing, which is to click into the individual document. So I click on the link and it takes me to the document itself. And here is my favorite thing within all of the lab, because this gives you the ability, in essence, to critically evaluate the document and figure out how the OCR process works. So I'll just let this render. And as it's rendering, I see a few questions in there. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Moore. Thank you, Monique. I think what you guys have done is just share the documents that you have at Tel Aviv. So I said that somebody from the library would be sharing it, and as if by magic it happened. So thank you, Moore, for that. Let me just zoom in here. And let's have a look at the document itself. So here's the document side by side with the OCR. And the OCR is what is known in the trade as garbage. Okay, this OCR is absolute rubbish. Okay, now it's good that you recognize this, and it's good that you find this early, because what you don't want is to include this within your research and put it through put it through your analysis tool, because this can skew your research. So you have the ability to remove this if you want to. I suppose there's a key question, and that is, why is this so poor? Because actually it's pretty clear. We can read this. It says, I'm an unmarried woman and have been educated in England and Scotland. Well, that's clear. The problem is, if we scroll out, then you can see that this document, or this result, comes from the left-hand side of the page. And this piece of newspaper was originally archived as a bound volume. So I want you to imagine that, and what you've got here is the spine of the volume. So this is right next to the spine. Now I want you to imagine this laid out on a flatbed scanner, like a photocopier. So it's, in essence, what you've got is all of the documents on the left-hand side by the spine. The left-hand side is raised a bit. So it all slopes from left down to right. It's all kind of diagonal. And you can see this in better detail down here at the bottom right. Now that's a problem for the OCR software, because OCR software works in horizontal straight lines. Okay. And when the OCR software comes to this, it basically breaks. It doesn't know what it's reading, because the script is all going left to right, but the top left down to bottom right, but the the OCR works in straight lines. So that's why this is poor. Okay, it's nothing to do with the quality of the image, it's to do with the quality of the scan itself. But you don't care about that. You just care that it's bad OCR. So you have the ability to remove it. You also have the ability to fix it. So you can download this OCR and you can transcribe it by hand. You can fix it by hand and then upload it back into the lab. That's fine. Or you can use the cleaning tool within the lab. You're going to see, I'll click on the clean link here, and this is the cleaning tool. It's quite simple, but very, very, very powerful. You have the ability to create your own cleaning configurations, and here are my cleaning configurations here. You can see I've created them for any number of reasons. I've done them for types of document. I've done them for types of tools. I've done them even for certain languages. Okay, so I can do whatever I want, and I can change the configurations here. The configurations are dead easy. I can remove number characters. I can remove special characters or particular special characters. I can remove all punctuation if I want to. By default, it removes tabs and line breaks. I can do things like find and replace. So if something is commonly misspelled, I can replace it with the correct spelling there. I've also got stop words over here on the left. Stop words are just words that get ignored from my analysis. You can add your own stop words, and you can see Hebrew is one of the stop words in here, as are Latin or Turkish or Russian or Swedish. So you can add different languages within here. Stop words, as I said, words that get excluded, commonly occurring words. In English, words like a and the and, he and she and it. These are words you don't necessarily want within your analysis. But if you do want them, you don't have to use these stop words. You can just delete from there, and you can use, and then they'll appear within your analysis. Or you can add to your stop words. So if I want to add the word suffrage, because I don't want that to appear in my analysis, because I know everything's about suffrage, because that's what I searched for, then that ignores it from my analysis there. And the only other thing to say is be as descriptive with your configuration names as you can be, because it helps you when you come back to this. That's good research practice no matter what. Put, comprehensive notes if you want to, just to be as descriptive as you can. It'll help you when you come back to it in 6 months and you forget what you did. Another couple of things in the chat, so I'll just check there. I see that there's a couple of other things. Vera, do you incorporate AI for OCR and translation? No, we don't. We use the very latest OCR engines. I think the one we use at the moment is the latest version of Abby, Abby Fine Reader. You may not have heard of that, but Abby, A-A-B-B-Y, I think that's Abby anyway. That's what it is. We use the very latest kind of OCR engines. Our OCR is as good as any and better than most. Part of the reason for the reason that we don't do those kind of things is same answer to your original question. It's that what academics have told us that they're looking for is the original document, and they want the ability to kind of clean things up and translate, and indeed to check things for subject accuracy. Yeah, we don't, AI engines aren't nearly sort of sophisticated enough. We do a bit of testing with them, and we test a lot to make sure our OCR is correct. But yeah, nothing like that within the OCR process at the moment. But great question, Vera, thank you. Okay, so cleaning, that's all of that. Let's go back again though to my results list, because I want to show you adding these results to my documents. And I need to go forward a bit here, because now I'm in my results for the Aberdeen Journal. If I go to the top, oops, there we are there. So you have the ability to select all 100 results on a page. So I've done that there, or you can select all 481 results up to a limit of 10,000. 10,000 is the content set limit. Okay, you can't go bigger than 10,000 at the moment. Yeah, so you can add up to 10,000 documents into one content set. So here I've selected all 481, and then I can add it to a content set. I can create a new one, or I can add it to one of my existing content sets, which are all here. And I've got one on suffrage editorials there. Actually, I've already added these. So if I tried to add these documents, it wouldn't work. As you've seen there, it adds 0 documents. That's fine. I don't want to double up. I don't want to duplicate the documents within my content set. And you can see these have already been added here. Let's go and have a look at that. Let's go and look at the analysis. So I'm going to go to, oh, in fact, before I do that, I'll show you my content sets, because this is where essentially all your projects reside. And what you're going to see is that I've got a lot of content sets organized by folders in some case, and sometimes just kind of laid out here. So you can create folders, you can move things, you can merge projects. My suffrage editorials is down here at the bottom. And if you look at it, if I click into it, we're going to see a project dashboard. Projects are built up of 2 things. On the left-hand side, you've got your documents. Here they are here. You've got the documents, this link here. You've got the search history that you use to create them. You can download your documents and metadata at the top here. And then on the right-hand side, you've got your tools. And here are all the tools that I added to this particular content set. Let me show you how you add tools to a content set, because you do it in the Analyze section. Analyze is here on the right-hand side. And this allows you to, at the moment, there's no plus sign up there. But if let's say I removed, well, let me go to another one. So I'll go to my suffrage 2. Here you should see I've got 2 added, but the ability to add tools, and I can just add any one of the 6 tools in there, click done, and it will add them to my content set. I then have to configure them and run them. But let me show you one I've created early, just to give you a sense of what you can do within the lab. So here's the suffrage editorials that I ran with a number of different tools added against them, okay? And I'm going to show you a couple of these. Now, the range of tools is really broad. There's quantitative tools, qualitative tools, as I said. They get used for any number of reasons. The advice I can give you is there's no project I can think of that would use all of the tools as I've done here. I've just done them. I've added them all as an example. It entirely depends on the question that you're trying to answer. Sometimes you run tools in parallel, so you run 2 tools at the same time. Sometimes you run them in sequence. So you might run one tool, and then from the output of it, you run another tool. That's totally fine. You can do that, and I'll show you how. But it all depends on what you're trying to figure out, okay? So it's a good idea to use the Learning Center to learn what the tools do and why you would use them in which instances. But I'm going to show you a couple of them now and try and show you them in action. So the first one I'm going to show you is Ngrams. Ngrams is nice and easy because it gives me a nice, easy visualization that people understand a word cloud. So here it is here. Let me quickly show you how you set up the tools, because you don't need any coding skill within the lab. What we've done is we've taken open source tools. If you went to them on the open web, you'd need to know how to code. So if you went to Mallet, which is here, you'd need to know how to code to make it work. You don't in the lab, because what we've done is put a skin over the top of it where, for example, all you've got to do is give it a name, put some numbers into boxes, give it a cleaning configuration if you want to, and then click run. It's as simple as that. You or me or anybody can make this work. But what do these numbers mean? Well, with Ngrams, what N is in Ngrams is a number. It's any number between 1 and 6. And in essence, it's you defining what an Ngram, it's defining the size of a phrase or indeed a single word that you want to find within your document set. Because what Ngrams does is it finds you the most commonly occurring words and phrases within your content set, and you define the size of it. So if you want, let's say, to find 3-word phrases, then you change that to 3. And it's just going to find you 3-word phrases. If you want to find a range from 1 word up to, let's say, 4 words, then you do that from a single word all the way up to 4 words. You tell it how many times the word or phrase has to appear to be included in your analysis. That's this. You might say 5 words. 5 times. So it appears 5 times or more, and then it can appear within the analysis. You say how many engrams you want to return. Maybe you want fewer than that. So in this case, it's 200, and you might want to add an analysis. The advice I'd give you here is be as clear as possible with your run name. You can see here that with my naming conventions, I try and define what I've put within the analysis. So this is N1 to 4, threshold 2. Actually, I want to make it threshold 5, 200 returned, and default clean. Okay, and then I could run that and it would run it. But that might take a few minutes and I don't have time. So I want to show you what I've already done. And the reason for that is this gives us a good example of what the cleaning tool can do. So this is what happens if I do a default clean. And you can see I've default cleaned with N1 to 4, threshold of 2. And what's returned is fine, but not great, because I've got things like quotation marks. I've got single letters. I've got, I think I've got numbers within here somewhere. So this is not great. So I want to apply a cleaning tool. And this is what I did for this next one here. I applied a cleaning tool that I did called Ngram Clean, which is just a kind of quite aggressive thing. It takes away punctuation, it takes away single letters, and gives me a much better result here that allows me to kind of get a sense of what my document set is. And you can see here that I've got women there. I've got there's a lot of politics in here. So government, political, house would be, House of Commons. There we go, Commons there. So it allows me to find the most commonly occurring words without that noise within it. So that's what the cleaning tool did for me there. And then what I did is I changed it again. So all I did this time is I changed the lower value of N from 1 to 2. So now I'm finding as a bottom value, I'm finding a 2-word phrase. So here we are. Here are the most commonly occurring 2-word phrases within here. So Sir George, women's suffrage, House of Commons, United States, years ago, etc., etc. It might be that I want to look at, for example, this Church of England, in which case I can find all the documents from which that phrase appears. So here they are all here, and I can click into those individual documents there, which is a really, really useful thing for me. So that's Ngrams, and that's using the cleaning tool. Let me go back to my tools that I ran and show you another tool here. And this one's topic modeling. And this is a qualitative tool. So Ngrams is quantitative. It's just counting things, counting the amount of words or phrases. Topic modeling is qualitative because you need to get involved. And topic modeling is brilliant for teaching because it's a great way of getting students to engage with the literature. Now, let me show you the first run I did here for topic modeling. As I said, topic modeling runs an algorithm across your data many, many times, looking for words that commonly co-occur together. And when it finds them, it groups them into thematic topics. First of all, it numbers them. Sort of here I have here 0 to 9. I've actually named one of them here, men. So this one, man, time, or men, time, great man, country, people, work, present, years in question. I decided that was all about men. And I can investigate it further by clicking on the topic, and it shows me the terms that are grouped together to make my topic. It finds me the phrases from within that topic that are most commonly occurring. It even finds me the documents, and I can dive into these to close read them if I want to. It's a great way of getting your students to engage with particular topics, because I need to go into each one of these to figure out what they are. Fortunately, I've already done that. So if I go into my edited view here, then you're going to see that here I've got the same thing where I've now just re-edited all of these ones here. And what it allows me to do is I can group these by, or I can measure these. I can change the metric that I'm looking at these through. So in this case, I'm looking at tokens. Tokens are just words. So here I'm looking at the topics that have got the most words against them, as opposed to the ones that have got the least. And it's depressing, but not at all surprising to see that men is the one with the most words. And if I go low to high, then there's women there. But of course, this allows me to isolate the women section of my women's suffrage editorials. And then if I go to documents, I can actually select all of these documents and I can add them here to a new content set. So essentially, I'm taking the results from the analysis that I've done and turning them into a new project. This is a really great way of kind of using the tools to explore within your data and to narrow it down. Okay, there's one more project that I want to show you. It's very, very quick, and I'm aware of the time, so I want to give you time for questions. And it involves it involves the data that I uploaded earlier. So you remember I uploaded 2 poems, romantic poems, The Eve of St. Agnes by Keats and Christabel by Coleridge. These are from a module that I taught in on Gothic poetry. Okay, Gothic fiction, actually, where they were looking at Gothic poetry. And I did a few things. The first thing that I did is what we did with the suffrage editorials is we threw loads of documents at it. It was about 2,000 documents. You can do that, of course, up to 2,000, up to 10,000, but you don't have to. You can analyze individual documents, and this is what I've done here. So here's the Coleridge poem, Christabel. This is one document. And what I did was I used word clouds or used n-grams to identify the most commonly occurring words from within there. And this is good because it gives me a view of the poem that I wouldn't necessarily have had by reading the poem. And of course, what that means is I can compare it with the same analysis just now on the other poem. So on this time on the Keats poem here. So here's Keats's Eve of St. Agnes, and I can read that one there and compare and contrast. So I can have separate projects and I can use those to compare. But I can also compare within one project. So now what I've got is both of the poems combined together in a content set. So here they are here, both of them here. And I've run a linguistic analysis across this. So parts of speech. Parts of speech is a great tool because it allows me to identify and to compare the parts of speech. Let's do that there. To compare the parts of speech of different writers and even within individual works. So I've got the 2 poems in here from the 2 writers, and I'm able to compare and contrast. So how does Keats write in a different way to Coleridge? Well, actually, Coleridge uses more determiners. What's a determiner? A determiner is a, an, and the. He also uses more adpositions. What's an adposition? Adposition is in, to, and during. Whereas Keats uses more punctuation and indeed slightly more nouns. So there are more nouns within there, proper nouns, I think that is, as opposed to Coleridge. So I'm able to use this as literary analysis. Now I'm aware of my time, and I want to stop now and give you guys a chance to answer some questions. Ask some questions and for me to answer them. But obviously I've gone through 3 of the tools. There are lots more within here. But remember, the Learning Center is absolutely the best place that you guys can go to understand these. I'm happy to run further workshops to look into the other tools in more depth, but you should have enough information now to kind of understand these things, and I'll be sending you more information as well. So let me stop there. I see a question. Oh, there's a thank you there. That's great. What questions do we have? Obviously, you can pop them into your chat now. Thank you, Hage. That's very kind of you. Or just unmute while we're here and ask me the questions while we're here.